Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
The following program has been brought to you by Whole Foods Market. You may have noticed that one Whole Foods Market store is not like the other. We're proud that each of our stores has its own quirks, a direct connection to the surrounding community, and buys and sells their own products. Whether it's artisanal chocolates exclusive to Bowery, small batch pickles in Chelsea, or a featured craft beer on tap at West 97th, you'll find that each store is a little bit different than the next. With 6 Manhattan locations, Whole Foods Market offers a taste of every neighborhood. Come see us in Tribeca, Bowery, Union Square, Chelsea, Columbus Circle, or the Upper West Side. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. For more information, visit www.wholefoodsmarket.com.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America, from border to border, coast to coast, and all the ships at sea. Streaming live from the County of Kings, Brooklyn, New York City, on the Heritage Radio Network. Are you ready for the fastest half hour on the internet today? It's the Mike and Judy Show, spanning the globe for high-minded hijinks and lowbrow kinks to bring you the best in sex, drugs, rock and roll, and nuclear fission. They're too bad for radio and too good-looking for television. And now, here they are, the Nichols and May of the Now generation, your hosts, Mike Edison and Judy McGuire.
All right, we're back.
Part
2 of our show on ghostwriters, asking the musical question, is it highfalutin literary action or just highfalutin prostituting? And
either way is okay.
That's right. And I'm Mike Edison, and I'm here with the woman who lights up my life, Judy McGuire.
Hello.
So, Judy, what a lot of people don't know, people know about your fabulous book, How Not to Date.
Love that book.
Love that book. And they don't know, however, that you've been a ghostwriter yourself, that you were the mystery pen behind a Hardy Boys novel.
Yes, it was probably one of the most disheartening experiences of my writing career, and that includes writing porn. Porn was much more fun. It was so exacting. It was down to character counts on lines, at lines on page. They were very politically correct. I named a character Hal Pena, which they didn't go for. I had a Howard Stern character who got electrocuted by neo-Nazis. It was called Shock Jock. And yeah, it was...
Did they work for the New York Times?
They were young thugs, so the Hardy Boys could solve a crime with their peers.
I should probably introduce our highly Jewish guests today.
I'm the token goy here.
We have Valerie Frankel right here, who is a best-selling novelist and award-winning journalist. She is absolutely too legit to quit, even though she's mostly associated these days with ghostwriting the new book by Snooki of the Jersey Shore. What was that book called again?
A Sure Thing.
A Sure Thing. And I understand there's going to be a sequel.
I would tell you, but I'd have to give you 80 shots of tequila first.
And also with us today is my old pal Keith Eliot Greenbern. He's the author of the New York Times best-selling, or co-author, I should say, best-selling book, To Be the Man with Ric Flair.
Greatest professional wrestler ever lived, actually.
The greatest professional wrestler
and yet I've never heard of him.
Ever lived. It's no lie. And here we are once again on part 2 of our ghostwriting show. So the Hardy Boys books, I mean, if anybody has seen the spec sheets for Harlequin romances or Nancy Drew books, I mean, this is sort of an angle on ghostwriting. People forget that.
Well, Mike, didn't you have a lucrative career writing under the name Anonymous?
I did. Those books were too sleazy even for a pseudonym.
In fact, I think Valerie may be the only person that never swam in that sewer.
Totally incorrect.
You wrote pornography?
I wrote porn for you, Mike.
Oh, you did,
How about
didn't you?
that? Look at that.
I wrote some letters for Climax magazine.
Awesome. That's right. That's how we get started.
Also employed me with the triple coated wipe off centerfold. I believe that was their shtick.
I used to spread it around when I could. That was. It's true. I mean, who hasn't written pornography? I mean, people forget in the history of ghostwriting, William Faulkner was probably the greatest.
And you know what I remember when I was writing for Cherry Magazine? People would say, "I remember when Mario Puzo was working in it."
When I was doing the wrestling magazine, I think there were 14 people on the masthead, and I was 11 of them. You know, and everyone was a different voice. I mean, Elizabeth Morton, when I needed a woman's voice. Art Burns was my old school, whiskey-crusted cigar-smoking post-Jimmy Breslin reporter. But that's not really what ghostwriting is about, though, using pseudonyms. Ghostwriting is something else, and it takes various forms. People don't even realize, like Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was a famous ghostwriter, wrote a lot of stuff that later went under the names of various royalty. In music, it's very common, people finishing scores, and soundtracks for TV and movies. A lot of ghostwriting going on out there. And now, I know...
Well, I mean, even legitimate writers like James Patterson, for example.
Oh, my God.
I mean, has he written his own novel in 10 years? Who knows? And what we were talking about, James Fry.
James Fry, who must die.
The Factory.
Well, this guy has really put a bee in Judy's bonnet.
He's really bothers me because he's running this fiction factory, exploiting young kids, and he's a writer. If he were just some scumbag businessman from the start, it really wouldn't bother me. But he's everything that's wrong with publishing today.
Agreed. When I wrote my book, I Have Fun Everywhere I Go, which is a memoir, it was right on the heels of his whole thing with his memoir and him fabricating stuff and fabulizing stuff. And it was really bad. I said, man, you give me a bad name because I didn't make up anything in my book. In fact, I had to leave shit out because I didn't think people would believe it.
I didn't believe his book from the first time I read it. I just, because I hung out with junkies a lot during one of my jobs, and it was just didn't ring true at all, I felt.
Well, and that brings us back to the whole concept of authenticity, because you could be writing about junkies, but somebody who's walked in that world has to be there to verify it and say, I know that really happened. Like I wrote those books about professional wrestling, and people would say, oh, professional wrestling, it's all a work, it's all a sham. But people in the wrestling world, when they read those books, they say, yeah, that's the way it really is.
But the truth is, I'm a fan, and I've read all of those books, and you could tell from a million miles away whether it's real or it's not real. And the Ric Flair book, I know you had some problems with Ric Flair. We should talk a little bit about the relationship between the author and the ghost. But that book reads great. That's an excellent book.
Yeah, and I'm proud of the book. And, you talk about the problems. I mean, at the time, I viewed that as probably the most important book on professional wrestling ever, because you may mock this if you don't know about professional wrestling, but Ric Flair is considered by his peers the greatest who ever lived. He could work a 60-minute match night after night after night and as he put it, I could make a broom look like a champion. And, he took that very seriously. And so when I was given to him as a co-author, he was a little bit standoffish. It's like, wait a second, I don't even know this guy.
Because you're an outsider?
Well, I wasn't an outsider in the wrestling world, but he and I were not friends already.
Okay.
Whereas superstar Billy Graham and Freddie Blassie and the Iron Sheik and I, we were friends.
I see.
And so, he was like, well, I'm going to reveal everything to this guy who I don't fully trust. I mean, relationships in that business, which has long been a secretive business, can take decades to develop.
Well, our friend Michael Malice, he wrote one of the Ultimate Fighting Champion books. I can't remember the guy's name. But he said some of his co-authors that he's worked with looked at him as an adversary instead of a teammate. And that makes it way harder to write a book. I mean, obviously.
Well, that was another example. Like, Michael was assigned the fighter,
right? But they went on to become friends,
right? But at first it was a matchup. The publishers, chose the ghostwriter,
right? To blind date.
So exactly, and that can definitely cause problems, I think. But then again, the friend, if you start off as friends, that has potential.
Right, you leave out things that other people don't know because you know, it's always good to have an outsider.
Right, or like a friend relationship is different than a business relationship, and sometimes friendships turn businesses can get awkward.
Well, I've actually been working on a celebrity memoir. I'm ghostwriting.
You didn't tell us who.
And I'm not going to. This is a true ghostwriting, and that my name won't be on the cover. I won't be acknowledged. That's by mutual consent.
Not even in the acknowledgments.
I believe my contract calls to be prominently acknowledged, which is fine by me. I like the guy very much. And the nice thing was we'd been working on it for a long time before we actually sold the book, and we'd spent a lot of time like smoking dope and listening to Led Zeppelin together. And by the time we started writing, we'd been friends, and I really thought I'd caught his voice. Our editor feels that way too. But like you said, the problem is that now that we're friends, am I going to let it go easy on him?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I don't know if you necessarily have to go hard on people, but I think you have to press people to reveal things.
Right.
And everybody thinks they have a book inside of them.
Yes.
And then when they're writing that book, they have to really tell the story. You know, I co-authored a book with a detective in Akron, Ohio, Perfect Beauty, about a murder case there. And when he said, hey, I'm going to write a book about this case, all his fellow detectives were like, yeah, go ahead, write the book. And he goes, I'm going to talk about all the fighting that went down within the police department. They were like, yeah, that's fine, tell it. But when that came out in print, and those people, when anyone could walk into a Barnes & Noble and read that book, people in the Akron Police Department began to distance themselves from it.
Right.
Because it was like, you told the whole world our little secrets?
Right.
Yeah. It's hard to convince people to show the less flattering parts of themselves, too. And that's
true.
what people are interested in reading about.
Totally. I mean, interesting story with the Joan Rivers book, which again was a guide to plastic surgery. You know, a lot of service stuff, you know, what goes into a breast enlargement. And I said the very first day, Joan, we have to do a timeline, like chapter 1 of every single surgery you have had over the course of 30 or 40 years.
Wow.
Since
How many?
your 16-year-old nose job.
I think they have this timeline. It's in the Museum of Natural History.
And she said, I'm not going to do that. I don't remember them all. I just don't feel that's necessary. And I had to, I think we spent like maybe 4 months total on the book. And every day that we talked for those 4 months, I said, are you thinking about that timeline? How are we feeling about that? And finally, like literally when the book was a day away from being sent to the publisher, I just said, okay, no more fucking around. Give me every single surgery you've ever done and the approximate date. And we went through it and she agreed to do it. But I had to work on her for 4 months to get that most crucial information.
How many were there?
At least 24.
Wow.
And she's a big proponent of plastic surgery.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she wasn't hiding that she had it.
No,
She jokes about it.
All the time.
Okay, what is the most surprising plastic surgery she's had? The ones that I can't see. Unless, of course, you actually do make the shit and get me a date with Joan. Get me a third date with Joan is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
She had multiple surgeries on the same part. Like she had 2 nose jobs. She had her breasts augmented when she was younger and wanted to be sexy. And then she had a breast reduction when she got older and wanted to wear fashion because you need no boobs to wear clothes, which is a problem for me and sexy Judy McGuire over there.
Speaking of sexy Judy McGuire, there's a story I've been wanting to tell since I walked in here. When I heard I was going to be on a show with Judy McGuire, I mean, my heart was pounding. But I was
the Jewish boys go for the Catholic girls.
Yeah, I was thinking of Judy McGuire. Not that I'm disappointed, mind you.
You are disappointed,
but
and it's okay.
I'm thinking of Judy McGuire, the former roller derby star, who was on the New York Chiefs. And I remember being about 14 years old, 13 years old, being in Madison Square Garden during the year that the roller derby kind of fell apart. Mm-hmm. The roller derby and the roller games combined, and for a year there was a explosion, and about 2 years later roller derby was dead. But Judy McGuire was skating around the track before the game, and I was screaming, Judy, 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 and finally she turned around and waved to me, and I fell over my seat. Judy McGuire knows I exist, so here I am with Judy McGuire.
I love that.
The real Judy McGuire.
The real Judy McGuire. I'll tell you what, why don't we take a break for a second? Jack, we got one more super hot song about ghost writers queued up, I think. I Mike Edison with Judy McGuire, Val Frankel and Keith Eliot Greenberg, Suicide.
Ghost rider, motorcycle hero. He's looking so cute. Sneaking round in a blue jumpsuit. Ghost rider, motorcycle hero. He's blazing away. Like the stars in the universe. Ghost rider, motorcycle hero. He's screaming the truth.
All right, we're back, and I've been told that song's not actually called Ghost Rider, it's Ghost Rider.
Close enough.
I think so, too. That was suicide. Can you dig it? We're back on the Mike and Judy Show, broadcast live on the Heritage Radio Network from Roberta's in Bushwick. We're here with Keith Elliott Greenberg, Val Frankel, and the co-hostess with the mostest, the woman who is too hot for television, too hot for Madison Square Garden, Judy McGuire.
I wish I would. I feel so bad that I let Keith down.
You never let me down.
I don't think you have. Have you ever considered going to the roller derby?
No, I'm far too spastic. I have no balance.
We were talking before. We're talking about ghostwriting today, and Val brought up Tom Clancy or James Patterson. Who might as well be the same fucking person. I mean, seriously. And
it's like Styx and Kansas being the same day.
Interchangeable with REO and Foreigner, depending on which day of the week it is and what town it is, I suppose. But we're talking about authenticity. I mean, these guys did make it on their own names.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. You know, on the sweat of their brow and the toil of their pen, until they became a franchise, and now they're farming it out.
And I think I read some stat that like every 12th book that's bought in America was written by James Patterson.
Wow.
Some crazy stat, or maybe that was Stephanie Meyer.
Well, what about Mary Higgins Clark? Those books kept coming out. Or was it V.C. Andrews?
Well, V.C. Andrews, she
died and they kept coming out.
Yeah, I actually know the editor who was writing The Flowers in the Attic for years and years.
So dirty.
But what happens when you buy a book and it says Tom Clancy on it, and it's not, and Tom Clancy didn't write it? Is that fair? Is that...
Well, you are...
What are you buying into?
I think for the consumer, he is buying Tom Clancy books. He knows exactly what he's going to get.
Yeah.
He's going to get some spy
He's buying the Tom Clancy brand.
Right.
Yeah.
And James Patterson, you know you're going to have some females being tortured. You know, if that's what you're into, you buy a James Patterson.
Yeah, but what if I take it home and maybe even I like it? I later find out that Keith Elliott Greenberg, wrote the book.
Well, that'd be a much better book.
With a much more Jewish voice.
Actually, one of his ghostwriters is named Andrew Gross, so I just have to assume he's a Jew, right? He's totally comfortable with the situation. I read this, I think it was in the New Yorker, about the whole cottage industry, the Patterson empire. And the ghostwriter basically said, hey, I was doing my own books before I hooked up with him. They weren't being sold, or they weren't, no one was buying them. Now I'm selling millions of copies. I make a shitload of money. I'm cool with it.
Well, I think that's cool. I think people forget what working writers really do. And, I mean, personally, I'll write pretty much anything if you could pay my fee. I mean, that's the way...
I'm looking for work right now. If anyone listening wants to offer me some, I am.
You could do a memoir about the roller derby.
Yes.
There's a lot of tell.
Judy McGuire.
In fact, Judy McGuire was married to Mike Gavin and the speedster, and then she left him for Charlie O'Connell, who was the star of the roller derby. A little bit of Irish on Irish crime going on.
Judy McGuire as told to Judy McGuire.
Yeah, hey,
I like it.
That's good. So how do we get these gigs? How does this happen? I think that's what your lay people outside of publishing wonder. How does this even happen?
Well, I'll field that one. Well, the first one for me was with Joan. Well, I did a sex toy guide with a woman who had a sex toy shop. I just met her, in the ordinary course of events.
Okay. You met the sex toy woman in the ordinary course of events, and you made a beautiful book together.
Her child is here.
Oh, that's okay. You know Shannon. They're friends. The celebrity thing was different. I auditioned for the job. There's a service that goes out to pretty much every agency in New York. Mm-hmm. Ghostwriter or celebrity looking for ghostwriter. Send your material to this, celebrity agent, and then if you pass that first tier, then you get an interview or you get to send more stuff. And so I, just jumped through the hoops and eventually interviewed with Joan for a different book and didn't get that job. But I sent her a thank you note that had a picture of a dog on it. And she loves dogs so much that she said, let's get that nice Jewish girl back here to talk about the plastic surgery. But
and sometimes that's all it takes is a picture of a dog. But do you have your own agent?
Yeah, I have my own agent. I mean, I write novels under my own name and memoirs under my own name.
And I believe you have a new one coming out?
I sure do. It's called It's Hard Not to Hate You, and it's coming out in September.
What's it about?
It's about how I pretended not to hate everybody for most of my life, and then I decided to just hate at will.
That's good. That's positive.
Yeah, it is very positive.
I find hatred very liberating.
It's a breakthrough for me. So yeah,
I can hold a grudge.
Judy, who have we 86th on the Mike and Judy show this week?
Ben, I can't remember his name. James Fry, never invited on here. Fuck him.
I go back to that. I was reading that story in New York Magazine about James Fry, sort of getting ready for the show, and as the layers of the onion became unraveled, just to see what a scumbag organization they're running. Now, I gotta tell you, I have no problem with running a fiction factory. With a bunch of writers hacking it out. I mean, this is how I started in the business, to be honest with you, writing porn novels.
Right. Give them royalties or give them huge advances.
I got a flat fee, which at the time was $400 a book.
Which is what James Fry is paying now.
He's paying $250 plus promises, but you don't own the copyright, you don't own the rights.
You can get sued.
You're enjoying from this. Your liability is like insanity.
Right.
He is a horrible person, and we will never have him on the Mike and Judy show, and I'm sure that's really hurting him after a week of Oprah. I'm sure he's heartbroken.
Okay, while we're at it, what the fuck is wrong with Oprah that this guy needed an encore?
A two-parter.
Right. I think she had guilt.
Guilt?
I think she was trying to assuage her own guilt for destroying the guy's life, even though he sort of destroyed his own life by lying. But still,
I'm a little put out by the whole thing personally, as a working writer, like him and what's that other fellow, Stephen Fry, also Fry, and these people who fabulize things, who lie about their careers, the fellow for the New York Times.
Well, even David Sedaris said that it's sort of true. So I mean, sometimes you have exaggerations.
I'm fine, like all wrestling fans and punk rockers are, with a little hyperbole, with stretching a point for a laugh, with condensing the chronology a little bit. But then there's, I went to jail for a day, or I did hard time for a year.
Right.
Okay, and that seems out of bounds to me.
Totally.
And these guys that are making up these stories for the New York Times, or have, or various British tabloids, making up facts, and then their payday comes when they get the made-for-TV movie, the made-for-HBO special. To me, there should be no second acts. This is a job, to me, that you're on an honor system, which should require some amount of integrity, says the pornographer. But at the end of the day, I think we have a contract with our readers to have a certain amount of honesty. What you see is what you get, And, of course, in wrestling, we all know, things are going to get a little blurry around the edges. But I think it's theft. I think it's a type of larceny.
Well, I mean, having been in the women's magazine business for 20 years, I can say that not every quote from Jane S. about her sex life is completely true. But
and her age is sometimes tweaked,
sometimes her age is tweaked, and sometimes, she never even met that guy at the bar. But it doesn't matter, because the idea behind it, and
I don't think anybody's invested in Jane S. enough to feel betrayed.
Speak for yourself, Keith. Once I found out those fitness tips were lies, it's all over.
Well, there's your metaphor to wrestling. It's all an illusion. I mean,
but it's an illusion, and it's not an illusion. See, that's the thing about wrestling that keeps it authentic.
Right. I mean, everyone knows it's fake, and they acknowledge
Well, I wouldn't
fake.
call it fake. I would call it predetermined.
Right. But everyone's okay with that. It's like reality TV. It's
my grandparents weren't.
They were disappointed.
they were very disappointed.
Oh, well, my father was more disappointed when I worked for the wrestling magazines than I was working for either the dope magazine or the porn magazines. Wrestling is far more offensive.
Actually, that's probably when my mother was proudest of me, when I was writing for the wrestling magazine.
But there is a question of authenticity. And what parameters can you take just to make this shit up? I mean, I'm writing a celebrity memoir. Sometimes I make it up. I fill in the blanks with the benediction of the writer. It's not too far out, but...
Yeah, I wrote a book for parents of children who are being bullied. I've never had children. I don't know children, really. And the co-author just gave me a series of academic articles, and it's mostly made up. And he never even read the book, we think, and he went on 2020 and talked about it.
But that was your job, though.
It was
that
my
was
job.
your job, was to make him. It's like a guy on wrestling who loses in a televised match to make the other guy appear worthy of a title shot.
Yep.
That was your job. You were the jobber.
Right. Well, you put it through the meat grinder.
You know, I've had so many weird gigs and talking about ghostwriting. I wrote an introduction for a book. It was the same book for Paul Simon. It was a book about the history of Manny's music shop up in 48th Street, the guitar store. And Paul Simon agreed to write the introduction for the book. He'd been a customer, and the old guy that ran Manny's, this guy Henry, Manny was his father. And Henry was the guy who took the business over, and he happened to be there right when the electric guitar fad took off, and the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, and he saw Jimi Hendrix's first Stratocaster, and the Beatles were in and out, and the Doors, and if you recall Manny's, all the pictures on the wall. So there's all that. He says,
including Simon and Garfunkel.
Everybody. So, of course. And Paul Simon, his dad was a Tin Pan Alley guy, and he was always at the store. He said, you got to call Paul Simon. He loves me. He's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Get in touch with Paul Simon. He's like my son. And so, okay, so we get in touch with Paul Simon through his office, and Paul says, sure, I'll do it. And I said, well, Henry said that, you want to do this thing. He goes, oh, okay, well, what do you want from me, right? He's not quite as enthusiastic as I was led to believe he might be. I said, well, why have you been loyal to Manny's and to Henry for all these years? He goes, what the fuck are you talking about? The second I got famous and started getting free guitars was the day I stopped shopping there.
Oh, nice.
Well, we tweaked that. We made it work at the end of the day.
I think we're out of time, Mike.
Are we out of time? The fastest 30 minutes on the internet today? I can't believe it. Jack, how we doing?
Good.
Jack's nodding. That's our engineer, Jack Inslee, engineer of the stars.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Okay,
All
so
right.
Keith, what do you have coming up next?
Well, I'm actually working on another true crime book, but I can't discuss it because there may be some more developments in the case.
More murders?
No, not more murders. I'm never really tipped off to that in advance,
Okay.
but more arrests.
And Val?
Well, I would say that I'm working on the friggin' sneakquel, but like I said before, that would be wrong.
Friggin' sneakquel.
to say that.
Before we go, I wanted... Hey, Jack, just give me a little music, Jack. Anything will do. Some bongos, maybe a little Bruce Springsteen. I want to do a little dramatic reading of Snooki's book because this stuff is good. This stuff is good. He had an okay body, not fat at all, and naturally toned abs. She could pour a shot of tequila down his belly and slurp it out of his navel without getting splashed in the face.
I think I actually got that from one of your porn novels.
All right, you see? This is good. Spread it around. But this is a great sentence by anybody's standards. Yum. Johnny Hulk tasted like fresh gorilla. That's gold, Val. How do you come up with this stuff?
It just flows right through me. Like.
Well, the great thing is a Jersey girl, you're more authentic than Snooki. She's not even from New Jersey.
True. I doubt Judy and I have had many afternoons at the shore.
Exactly.
Once upon a time.
Here's another great bit of literary gold from the Snookster. I love food. I love drinking boys, dancing till my feet swell. I love my family, my friends, my job, and my boss, and I love my body, especially the badonk.
Right. Yes, I think that we brought the word badonk to the masses.
I think you're doing the Lord's work. All right, for the Mike and Judy Show, this is Mike Edison, my co-host Judy McGuire with Keith, Eliot, Greenberg, Val, Frankel.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks to everyone. Thanks, Jack, the engineer. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to this program on the Heritage Radio Network. You can find all of our archived programs on heritageradionetwork.com, as well as a schedule of upcoming live shows. You can also podcast all of our programs on iTunes by searching Heritage Radio Network in the iTunes Store. You can find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for up-to-date news and information. Thanks for listening. The following is a public service announcement from Just Food. Help bring live chickens into food challenge communities through your donations to the Just Food City Chicken Project 2011. The City Chicken Project would not be possible without the volunteer hours, donations large and small, and the vibrant energy and ideas of the communities we work with. Just Food is a nonprofit organization that connects New York City communities and local and urban farmers with the resources and support they need to make fresh, locally grown food accessible to all. To donate, search on Kickstarter.com for Just Food and find their City Chicken Project. For more information on Just Food, visit justfood.org or call 212-645-9880. That's 212-645-9880. Let's keep making New York City a better place to live and eat.
This is Behind the Scenes Food News with Katie Kiefer. The new Whole Foods Market in Fairfield, Connecticut is going to be generating their own clean power on site with a PureCell, that's a registered trademark, System Model 400 from UTC Power. I'm going to quote now from Tristan Coffin, the Green Mission Specialist for Whole Foods Market, Northeast Region. In connection to our company's green mission, we are very proud to be reducing our carbon footprint while producing clean energy in our new Fairfield, Connecticut location. UTC Power has been a great local partner in implementing our fuel cell to help us reduce our environmental impact in the Fairfield community. By generating most of its power on site with the fuel cell, the Whole Foods Market in Fairfield will prevent the release of more than 847 metric tons of carbon dioxide annually, the equivalent of planting more than 85 acres of trees. The reductions in nitrogen oxide emissions compared to a conventional power plant are equal to the environmental benefit of removing more than 100 cars from the road. In addition to the reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, the PureCell system will allow Whole Foods Market to save nearly 3.5 million gallons of water annually. Unlike central generation and other fuel cell technologies, the PureCell system is designed to operate in water balance, so there is no consumption or discharge of water during its operation. That's an awesome story. Kudos to Whole Foods. Don't you love that? This has been Behind the Scenes Food News with Katie Kiefer.
Nicole Taylor is always the first to talk with new and exciting personalities in the food world on her show Hot Grease. Check out a little clip.
Everything is super sweet in the Heritage Radio Network studios today. We're chatting with Fanny Gearson. Fanny is a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America and the 2011 James Beard Foundation Cookbook Award nominee. Oh my God, we fry in Bed-Stuy. We have to talk dough. Donuts. I'm going to have to say, Fanny, I don't know if you know this. I was definitely the first person in Brooklyn to start talking about dough. Did you know that?
I knew that last time I saw you, but I didn't know that before.
So we have to talk dough. I mean, it is a bona fide phenomenon in Brooklyn.
I'm so excited to be part of it, and I can't believe it. You know?
I mean, I was just telling you before the show that I think about a month ago, I went to dough on a Sunday at 2 o'clock, and all the donuts
You like what you hear? You can hear Hot Grease every Monday at 3:30 p.m. live on Heritage Radio Network.